Welcome to the Gigless Podcast, a podcast showcasing the works and talents of those who lost their gigs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This podcast will feature a range of creatives from the tri-state area who are young visionaries and who contribute to their craft despite the recent events that have happened. Join us today as our host Remi Leibovic speaks with Darryl Yokley, the New York City saxophonist and composer. Yokley and his band, Sound Reformation, have headlined in esteemed venues such as the Kennedy Center, the Paul Brown Monday Jazz Series, Salsa Meets Jazz Festival, and the Philadelphia Museum of Art. His latest work, Pictures at an African Museum, released in 2018 and has been praised in multiple articles such as New York Times, Downbeat, and All About Jazz. You can learn more about Darryl and his album in the show notes of this episode. Enjoy.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Gigless. Today we have our guest Darryl Yokley.
Hi, how you doing?
I said it right. I'm happy.
Yep. That is correct.
So Darryl is a local musician based in Upper Bergen County, really close to the city, and he is a jazz musician with a pretty awesome website that I checked out.
Oh, thank you. I did it myself too.
lots of nice imagery on there. I'll definitely put it in the show notes so people can go and find you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So tell us about yourself. When did you start playing music, and what, for our listeners, is your primary instrument?
I started playing when I was 10. I started out on clarinet, and then I switched to saxophone when I was 11, and that was my main instrument for many years. I kind of still do clarinet and flute. Actually, I'm doing a little bit more these years, just because the gigs require it, the kind of work I'm doing. But primarily, I play with my band, Sound Reformation, which is like a jazz quartet. And sometimes we'll branch out to other projects, and then I freelance with other artists around the city, and wherever the work takes me.
So the city being New York City.
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry. I'm just assuming everywhere.
No, it's all good. Because if you're down in South Jersey, the city is Philly. So it's like whenever people say. And it was funny because
exactly, yeah.
when I was going to school next to Philadelphia, I'd say to my friends, because I'd be going home during the weekend, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to the city. They're like, oh, can we come with? I'm like, you guys are going to drive up to New York? They're like, no, I thought you meant Philly. So it was like...
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's too funny.
Absolutely. So, flute and clarinet, how is that for a gig?
It's kind of like expected of us as jazz saxophonists. Like when we play big band gigs, like they'll write out charts where we have to play these other instruments sometimes. So even if we're not always playing them, we're kind of expected to know them. It's kind of getting to be a little bit of a lost art, but I like to try to stick to tradition and just give myself as many opportunities to get the calls. So yeah, it's something I keep up. And I in these years as I'm getting older, I'm actually enjoying playing the instruments, which is cool.
Did you go to school for music? Like, what's your musical background with education?
I did, yeah, I did. I started privately with teachers in middle school and high school, and then I went off to college at Duquesne University. I got my bachelor's in music performance, and then I went off to grad school at Michigan State and got my master's over there in music performance as well. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So, so I take it that you've been playing gigs basically your whole professional and academic career.
Yeah, there was definitely a time where it was more on the academic side of things, but as I was in school, little by little, I started getting more work, and then by the time I got out, I was working fairly often. I think out of grad school, I started touring with the Four Tops a little bit, which was nice, coming out of school and having some type of income like that. That was a great gift that fell in my lap.
When did you graduate? What year? Graduate school?
2006.
Nice. Good
year. Yeah, so I'm getting up there now.
Absolutely. So what does your typical gig look like for our listeners who have never seen you play?
It'll probably look like what you might envision. Like, I guess from a visual standpoint, saxophone, piano, bass, drums. Like, it looks like your standard jazz quartet. But then the music we play or the music I write, at least I like to think it's kind of a little more on the original experimental side. So, it's funny. And, we've been playing together for, I think, at least 7 years together as a group. My group consists of Zakai Curtis on piano and his brother Lucas is on bass. And then a friend of mine that I met actually while living in Philadelphia, Wayne Smith Jr., he's a great drummer. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
we've been together. You can tell we've known each other for a while. When you see us on the bandstand, we smile and laugh and have a good time. So I think the audience enjoys it as well.
Yes, stage presence is so important. I feel that whenever I go to a show and there's no stage presence, the whole thing just like turns down for me. Like I tune out. I'm like that.
Almost definitely.
Do you know who Bank is? He's like a mixer, plays sax. He's like a DJ kind
Actually,
of
now
guy.
that you mentioned the sax part, yeah, now that you mentioned the sax part, I feel like I might have heard that name now.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
guess.
we went to to give context to our listeners. Me and my friend went to this Bank concert, and long story short, everybody before him were all like DJs, so they weren't really like dancing or really doing anything, and the crowd was just kind of like everyone was talking to each other. But when he came on stage, he was like, on the sax, like mixing at the same time, like dancing, and that's like a whole stage presence really does make the difference, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that's kind of his niche. I mean, I've done a couple. When I say a couple, maybe it's literally a couple of the DJ sax gigs. But I mean, I just show up with my mic and play to the tracks.
But
So
that's
he sounds like
fun.
he's got it down. Yeah, it is fun. It's a different element for me, but I enjoy it and the people enjoy it. So that, as long as they're happy at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
So you like doing a lot of crowd engagement at your gigs?
I guess I do. I don't really try to do it consciously, but I mean, I will, kind of feed off that energy. You know, um, Obviously as a performer, it's nice when the crowd interacts with you. But I've also learned throughout the years, sometimes, when you're writing music, some people are not going to be receptive to it, and I've learned that I just have to kind of channel or like feel good about what the band is doing, and even if it seems like the crowd might not be responding, still give it as if they're giving you 100%. I guess one way to I I really learned that lesson when I played in Tokyo because there was no clapping or anything after any of our solos and stuff, and I was like, man. But then I realized that it's not that they didn't like it; it's that they listen different rapport with the audience. They're just that focused on the music that they're not clapping because they want to hear what's coming next. You
Yeah.
know,
Okay, so it's a
so
different culture, basically, like a
yeah,
different response.
exactly, yeah. So
If
yeah. So
have you
I mean,
played?
I'm not sure if I kind of. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, have you played other places other than Japan, like other countries?
I did. I went on a tour with a great trumpet player, Eddie Allen. We went to Brazil a couple years ago, which was a lot of fun. So I almost didn't come back. I was like, it was even in the winter, it was like the weather was so great. I was about to tell my wife, like, bring the little one over and just stay over here. So there was good times. I loved Brazil. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to go back soon.
Oh, that's great though. So Tokyo. So you got to Japan, you got to Brazil. You play in one of the greatest cities in the United States. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's going good, and hopefully we'll continue. At least I'll get opportunities to do some other stuff. We were looking at doing a European tour this year, but I think it is not going to happen just because of the stuff that's happening with like the COVID-19 stuff. So, but there's always next year.
Absolutely. So, getting into the COVID-19 pandemic, how has it affected you and how have you adjusted?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like everyone else. I guess just regardless of whatever genre or instrument you play, if you are a gig player, you've lost work, obviously. So I have lost a number of gigs from it. But rather than sit there and wish things were different. I actually kind of didn't mind it. I hate to say it that way per se. I mean, obviously, no one likes to lose money, but I've used it as an opportunity to start up with a business, like a magazine, online magazine business. A friend of mine invited me to quite a while ago, and I said, well, now I have the time to kind of help out. So I started helping out with this magazine that he runs, and this is pretty cool. It gives me another glimpse of the other side of the music business, like about organizing reviews and writing these articles and coordinating stuff. So it's pretty cool in that respect. And then I teach at a school private lessons, but now everything is being done via kind of like this online. So that's a different experience. So it's I'm adapting. You have to kind of figure out a way to hopefully generate some type of income in the meantime, rather than just moping and hoping things would change.
Absolutely. So, can you get a little into your magazine for our listeners?
Oh, sure. Well, the magazine name is Yokley Magazine. It was started by a friend of mine, Tiffany, and she's up in northern New York. But since then, she's kind of stepped away from it a little bit. And the friend who introduced me to her is David and Magno Noel. Just a little backstory: we met, geez, about maybe 10 years ago, and he lives in London. We stayed close friends. And then I did an album that came out almost 2 years ago. Wow, it's been that quick. And he did the artwork for this album. The album's pictures at an African exhibition. So I wrote all this music and like he did the paintings. But long story short, before I get off on a tangent, so he's running the magazine now with another friend at the same dinner that I met him at. Mark Boderi, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. So I understand your concern about pronouncing people's names right now. So those two guys are running it. And now I stepped into it. I was a little hesitant for a while just because having to practice and the family and teaching, I wasn't sure I could commit. But with no restrictions now, I've been helping out and promoting different artists with their new releases and stuff, and different subject matters I think are important. So it's a lot of fun being on the I guess creative editorial side of things per se. You know what I mean, with the magazine.
As a
So
designer,
it's a
yeah.
lot of work too. Yeah, so it's fun. It's a new venture for me, and hopefully we'll make it. We'll take it off and get some more subscribers for the magazine, and yeah, it'll be another way to bring the network and get a closer knit community for musicians and artists of all sorts.
Absolutely. So this is the shift that's happened in your daily life basically is you took the focus from the music and you're putting it into the magazine for now at least.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so to speak, because I mean, in the apartment, I can't practice as much as I want to, and the place I usually practice at, the building closed, so I try to be conscious in my neighborhood. I kind of limit myself to, about 2 hours, maybe three at the most of practicing. And then I try to sneak in the magazine work there. Most of my work comes at night after the little one gets up because she doesn't go down for naps anymore. So once she's up, it's like she kind of dictates my schedule, and it changes every day.
Absolutely. I can understand that. But yes, so taking a more introspective look, like how have you coped with this, especially as like a family man, as a teacher, as you're getting it from all different angles. So how have you been coping with this?
Yeah, I have been getting it from all angles. I guess from the family perspective, it's nice to be able to hang out. But I guess at the same time, after a while, you do want your space, and unfortunately, you can't have that space. But but it's just I try to look at it as like I might not ever have this time again. Once my wife starts working again, and especially once the little one's in school, I won't have this time to really spend with her like one on one on a more regular basis. So even though it might be not ideal from a career perspective as far as getting stuff done the way I like to, I try to remember the positive things about it, and to take it that way. Because if you think about all the negative stuff, it just adds to the stress, and there's no point in killing yourself if there's something out there that can possibly do it for you. I mean,
Oh boy. Yes.
Yeah, not to say, I hate to. It seems like a dark turn or thinking of it that way, but I try to not bring up the negative news that's happening and bring it in the house. I try to keep stuff a little bit more positive around here.
Absolutely. I feel that media can just get from 0 to 100, and just everything lately, the way that the media has been portraying things, it's just not positive, and you need that type of, I think we all need that type of positive reinforcement, especially as creative people, because creative people are more sensitive. I feel. I
Yeah,
know.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's like, and after a while, I tell my wife just put the phone down. I mean, if you're hearing this person said this person said that, and if you go chasing every source, you're gonna get yourself stressed out, and not just my wife. I tell everyone this, like,
Yeah.
it can be from this, it can be from anything, but you want to. If this is, I hate to say it this way, but if say this were like the last little run for you, you want to be stressed out and and thinking about all the negative stuff, or you want to enjoy it with family and at least trying to be creative and do the best you can with what you have.
Absolutely. And I feel that, you're a jazz musician, and jazz makes me think of blues at the same time too. Though I know they're both completely two different genres, but a lot of musicians, they play
Mm-hmm.
one and the other. Do you ever play blues or?
Oh yeah, well, jazz. I mean, it's funny. Yeah, there is a blues kind of like a genre, I guess now per se, but jazz came out of blues, and I think they're one and the same because blues was like the first origins of it, down in New Orleans.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, they're one and the same. Nowadays, it's kind of morphed into something else where it can be like, kind of a very more simple blues or down home blues, like you think like BB King, but jazz musicians relate to BB King just as I think just as much as they would relate to like John Coltrane or something, because that's where the music was born out of, and it's still in there if people listen to it closely. And I love the blues. I mean, and now I might play some blues tonight.
Yeah.
Especially in these times, we need it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that because when you look at the lyric, I know that jazz came from blues, but I just wanted to separate it because we have a lot of musicians that listen to this podcast, and I don't want to get like a message saying
Oh
like
yeah,
it's the
most definitely.
same
Yeah.
thing. But
I I hear
but
you. I hear you.
yeah, I love Sharon Jones and the Daps Kings. Every time it was really scary for me. At one point, every time I would listen to Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, 100 Days and 100 Nights would come on, and I would be like, it was like
Uh huh.
before I would go on a date or something about that. And if I heard that song before I went on a date, that means I was doomed.
Oh
so
no.
so it was like a foretelling. So to those people that are listening that don't listen to jazz or they don't listen to the blues, a lot of it is very like depressing kind of lyrics. If depending on what song or what artist, it's a lot of struggle. So do you think that
Oh yeah.
could be thriving right now?
Oh yeah. I mean, probably I think so. I mean, I guess maybe my neighbors here might disagree. 'Cause when I start playing, they start putting on the disco or like beat music. And so I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking in my own little world, and maybe I'm disconnected. But I would hope so. Maybe because I mean, there's a saying the blues hurts so bad it feels good, and sometimes you need that kind of release. So if you're not listening to blues, for any listeners out there, maybe you might want to check it out, and you'll get your therapy.
Exactly. It's a release because it's such heavy emotional music, and the lyrics are just so intense. And I think that why wouldn't be people like I mean why wouldn't people be singing or coming up with that, especially when now is such an inspiration for that type of music.
Most definitely, yeah. I mean, we never seen anything like this. This is kind of, and it came out of nowhere and blindsided, I think, the whole world. So this is definitely a new chapter. And I think everyone is, from careers perspectives, health and family, everyone's trying to navigate it. So I mean, I think there'd be a lot of inspiration for blues and all sorts of music happening right now.
Absolutely. So have you been inspired by this time as well to you know write more songs, or has it has it made any projects come out of you that you wouldn't normally do?
I would maybe not so much that I would normally do. I think it's given me the time to work on projects that I had in the back of my I guess agenda for a while per se. Like I've been trying to get more on this Latin jazz side of things. You know, that's a very broad term, but you know, trying to listen more and learn. So it's been good as far as studying and kind of looking inward about what I want to do with the band and you know just overall career stuff. So I think that has been one of the positive things. You know, obviously, again, we all need money to survive, but sometimes you know these things, if you focus in the right way, you can turn them into a positive. I think.
Absolutely. And it's just about being in that mental headspace. So, what's the headspace then that you need to get into your highest state of production, you know?
Oh yeah, I think you know for me, I kind of work in spurts, like in it really like again at this point in my life with the little one and the family it kind of really is in spurts and they kind of dictate my schedule. But I mean, um, you know, when I do start getting into it, like I kind of get upset, so I have to be making sure that I get all my other stuff done. Like, did I pay the bills? Did I do X, Y, and Z before I really go down this dark tunnel and you know shut out everything? So I can kind of turn it on. It's just a matter about when I get the time to do it more. That makes sense, you know. Like the inspiration is always there. Like I'm always half detached from reality in some way, thinking about what I'm gonna do.
Absolutely. There's a band called Crystal Castles. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they like make all this weird ambient music. And Fever
Uh-huh.
Ray as well, which she did the intro song to Vikings, and that weird like spaceless sound. That's what I tell people the inside of my head sounds like. Because it's just
Okay.
like I'm half here and then half like just out somewhere else. But but I completely
Oh,
understand that. I feel that's a lot of creative people though. A lot of creative people are like half here, half like in the future or in the past, or like wondering what's coming next for them.
yeah, you know, sometimes it comes back to bite you. Like when you have to get some business stuff done and you reach out to these colleagues and then it's like, where'd they go? And it's like, oh, they're just like me. I forgot. Like I gotta follow with them many times to get stuff done.
Yeah, I was speaking with Dane, our producer, and he was basically just like, this is great that we're doing this. I said, yeah, you know what the best part is? Everybody has free time for an interview because I know
Right.
everyone's home and not doing anything.
Exactly. You know, and I think it's a good thing. You know, because like you said, it's a good documentation of the time, and then to show like how different people cope with it. You know, because it might happen again, and these people can have it for inspiration and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. I would I would not hope that it would happen again, but it's definitely to take back a reference and be like, "Oh, this is, we look back in the past and I know that like right now everybody's panic buying food. It is the time that we're filming this, I mean that we're recording this episode is Monday, April 6th, 2020, and I just want to say that like people are still panic buying food and panic buying toilet paper and all of that those produce things. And April is the time that you start planting seeds. So a lot of people are starting to resurge into gardening really heavily, like planting their own produce and stuff. But back in World War II, we had these things called victory gardens. So like,
Oh, okay.
and people would, because all the produce would go overseas to the troops, so people were encouraged to have their own gardens. So if that could be, so you're right. I hope that people in the future definitely listen to this and they look back and you know, they see the importance of local art and music and performance, but also see that like, we were able to make musical, artistic victory gardens for ourselves.
I got you. Yeah, most definitely. Well, yeah, it's
Little weird
it's a
rant
battle
there.
cry for hope. No, it's okay.
Absolutely.
I got where you're coming from. Yeah.
Good, good. As long as we're on the same page, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
You don't got to be on the
Yeah.
exact sentence or paragraph, but we need to be on the same exact page in the same exact book in the same exact chapter.
I got you. It's very important.
Absolutely. So are you looking into different ways into expressing yourself? Like I know that you're doing the magazine, but is there any like old instruments that you used to play that you're picking back up, or is there more exploration into like a whole other art form?
Um, I think it's kind of attached to the music, but but not. I mean, maybe in indirect way, I should say. I've been studying a lot of languages at night. Again, going back to the Latin jazz project that I'm kind of working on right now. So, my mother is Mexican American first generation. So, but I'm from that generation where a lot of Hispanic families didn't talk to their kids in Spanish growing up.
Hi.
Oh, okay, got you. Hola, yeah.
Hola.
Yeah. And it's funny because the piano player and bass player, they're from Puerto Rican descent. They're like we're all in the same boat. Like we can understand it, but like to speak it it's. I mean, I'm getting better. I'm happy to say, but it's like it's been a struggle. But and when my daughter was born, I'm like I don't want her to grow up with me having to always think about it. So I've been ever since she was even in the before she was born, I was talking to her and what little Spanish I could, and then just building my vocabulary little by little. So that's been an endeavor of mine, and not only for that, but again to understand like these lyrics that I hear when I hear the Spanish music or Latin salsa music, and just on a cultural level, just many reasons I'm studying that. But then also my wife is Japanese, and when they get older or get mad at me, I don't want to be wondering what they're saying. So I'm studying Japanese as well right now too. So I'm getting a lot of language stuff happening, which is good. That stuff's great for the brain. So I'm not sure if that answers the question. That's just one of the things that I am doing at the moment.
No, it's absolutely great. I think that Latin American jazz fusion is definitely a really fun exploration. I'm actually going to send you a bunch of bands because I know there's a lot of young cumbia fusion happening out in LA, and I know a couple bands from there that I'll send to you that they're just incredible. And then there's also, for all people who are trying to learn Spanish that grew up with Spanish, one of the main things that I do is I turn on Netflix and then I watch one of my favorite shows in Spanish. That way I have the plot line already in my head, but I can correlate that to Spanish. And another thing is, right here next to me, I have En el tiempo de las mariposas in Spanish, in the time of the butterflies. I'll take books.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll take books and I'll read them out loud because I can read in Spanish. I don't know about you. And I'll also send you more resources because I'm really big on that. They actually, when my mother told me about that, she told me that it was on the news that basically, and this was in the early 90s, they were telling people that if you taught your kids two languages at the same time that they would grow up to be insane. I'm serious. That was the whole thing. They were pushing that if you taught your children, they would never be able to, like, all these lies saying like they would never be able to fully grasp English, or they wouldn't be able to they would be developmentally stunted, stuff like that. It was like a whole. I know someone who's writing a dissertation on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I know my dad, he didn't want to be left out of the conversation, so that's why my mom didn't speak to me. And it's funny, all of my cousins, we all can kind of understand it to an extent, but none of us speak it. So it's like a whole generation that is just, you know, that doesn't really relate on that cultural level as far as just speaking the language. But I'm getting there little by little. Right? It's funny you mentioned the book right now. I mean, one of the inspiration for my project is a Cien Años de Soledad by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So I've been kind of writing the music from that book, and I read it in English, and it's hard enough in the language I understand, but trying to read that book in Spanish is it's intense.
Absolutely. And can you translate that for our listeners?
Oh, it's 100 Years of Solitude. So
There you go.
yeah,
Just so we don't have subtitles when you're listening to podcasts.
Yeah,
but
I understand.
but absolutely. So is there any kind of, So can you talk a little bit more about your Latin project then? Because I'm really interested in that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of it's kind of similar in some sense to my last project I did, Pictures at an African Exhibition, where I kind of I it was more of a historical narrative in my own mind, and like I said, my buddy David, he painted these pictures um, to the music I wrote, but so he kind of was influenced by what I did, but now in this sense, I'm kind of being influenced by literary work. So what my goal is to try to paint these pictures and tell the story of the book through sounds. So I'm doing a lot of research on it right now about because a lot of these things, the events in the book are based off of events that happened to Marquez in Colombia, during his life. Um, so I'm doing that. I actually got to sit down tonight and try to reach out to some of these professors at Columbia and NYU, see if they'll respond to some inquiries that I have about the book. Because it's such a very involved book. But one of the things about it is that people say this book is like the Bible for Latin America, basically. Like it's must read literature for not only Latin America but the whole world. But it's like one of those. It's like the Don Quixote. It's like it's on that level.
Yes.
Um, with that kind of presence, and that kind of people are familiar with the work, I want to make sure I do it justice by researching as much and bringing something really strong. And I'm sorry, back to my original point. I have a tendency to go off if you haven't noticed, but
Everyone does on this show. It's all
but it was
good.
yeah, a lot of people they said this book kind of encompasses all of Latin America. So I'm trying to do that with the music too, where it's not just music from Colombia, but it has influences from maybe the tango in Argentina, Cuban music, with the rumba, and Puerto Rican music, salsa, and then maybe flamenco from Spain. All these different elements that have been mixed in. Obviously, the Spanish and African mix with is what's the result of a lot of the music that we hear today. So I'm trying to bring all that to the forefront in this project too. So it's a lot of research from historical side of things, language thing, and then the music, which I'm really having a lot of fun learning about.
I'm gonna send you so many things because I said this on the show before, but I'm Cuban Argentinian. That's my heritage. And
Oh, okay.
yes, so all that stuff, I'm definitely gonna send you some Ibrahim Ferrier, and I'm gonna send you some Celia Cruz that really isn't known, and some other Cuban singers and songwriters that were also women but just not as famous. And then I'm gonna send you some stuff from. Uh, there's some female mariachi bands that I definitely like that are doing like a whole fusion thing, like again out in the California, because there's more Mexican culture out there than there is over here. Over here is on the East Coast. It's more like I feel like it's a lot more Caribbean influence for
Oh, most
sure.
definitely, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause I was born in California, so I know it's all Mexico over there.
yeah,
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 yeah.
and
Yeah, but it's cool, yeah, because I mean, my actually Zakai, the piano player, his partner, she's in Flor de Toloache, all female mariachi group, and they won the Grammy a couple years ago. So it's nice to see that stuff happening.
oh
It's great.
wow, that's
Yeah,
so great. Oh my god, yeah.
yeah.
I could totally go on a we could go on a totally different call about all this stuff. But for
Oh,
our
most definitely.
so that's great that you're trying to get back into your roots, into the Latin and into the Spanish like, so are you going to sing? Do you want to write song lyrics or
No, I mean that's the reason why I play instruments.
just double
I know
checking.
which battles to pick and which not to. Yeah,
Just
yeah. But I mean, maybe at some point I wouldn't mind writing the lyrics, but I'd have to get someone else to sing them for sure. Like, yeah, I don't even like to hear myself sing in the shower. That's how bad it is.
it's okay.
Yeah.
With all of this recording, I've tolerated the sound of my own voice. So, you know.
Oh, gotcha. I hear
Yeah.
you.
So so right now are you working with limited resources in going back to your normal work and routine?
A little bit like this place, I have a spot that I would usually go to practice late night to really work out ideas. So that's been the main thing I've struggled with is, trying to figure out ways to practice and get my work done without disturbing neighbors. Obviously, it's like I've been researching like how to soundproof my room and stuff. But then I was like, who knows how long we're gonna be able to work. So I just put up blankets and try to let that soak up the sound. So that's the main hurdle is that, and then obviously without the gigs, but there's nothing I can really do about that. And being stuck here, I can't really do live shows per se. Some people have that kind of space. I don't have it like that just yet. But I know some people have been putting videos together and stuff. And that's just not in my cards, so I just haven't been wasting time on stuff that I can't do.
Absolutely. And so we forgot this. I forgot to ask this question earlier. But when did you learn that you were having to shut down all your gigs with COVID?
Oh, it was funny. I played a big band gig. I think it was March 2nd, and then a buddy of mine said, "Are you able to do this gig on such and such day?" I said, "Sure." And then the next day, yeah, we got the text saying it's off. It's going to be scheduled till April such and such. But now I don't think it's going to even happen in April. I think it's going to probably everything's going to probably maybe start in the summer. So I had that, and then the other gigs that I had lined up got shut down. And then I knew it was going to get bad when New York shut down all the bars and venues. I was like, well, that's it right there. That put the nail in the coffin for a lot of musicians, myself included. And so we'll see what happens with everything. Hopefully it'll be okay.
Absolutely. So, where do you see yourself in the near future? Are you going to be looking to explore new projects? Are you going to get more into the Latin project, or are you going to try to go heavy into your other instruments? Like, tell me what the future looks like.
Well, that's a good question. Well, tentatively, we have this West Coast tour coming up, and I actually have to reach out to the venues because we don't know how long this is going to happen. So I guess the near future, I'm just hoping we can still do this tour. you know, that's because I mean the Latin jazz thing is something we're starting to focus more on. When I switch to a project, I don't switch out immediately. At least for me, I kind of meld into it. Like I'll still play music from the album we did even 2 years ago because it's still popular for some audiences. So we'll do that, but then we start slowly building in the other stuff until the other stuff takes over the majority of the program. So
Yeah,
it's a transition.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, no, but it's good to know that like at least you have like a plan or a sight of what it looks like for down the
Yeah.
line. Yeah. Where can our listeners find you? Because we're getting to our time cap.
Oh, okay. Well, I have my own website. It's DarrylYokley.com. It's DarrylYokley.com. Just because I know there's different ways to spell Daryl, and everyone misspells my last name. So, so there's my website. I'm on Facebook. Just again, my name Darryl Yokley. You can put it in there. My Instagram is Darryl Yokley Music. Twitter's Darryl Yokley. I'm on LinkedIn. So as long as you just type in, my name is fairly unique. So if you just type in Darryl Yokley, you can find me pretty much everywhere. And then the music's on sale on Amazon, CD Baby, was it iTunes? But if you can, for all those out there, if you really want to support your artist, buy the product off of Bandcamp. We get more of the sales that way. So yeah.
Yes, Bandcamp is a definite must-have. If anybody is listening to this and they're a musician, I highly suggest getting a Bandcamp because you will make actual money off it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we're gonna put all those links in the show notes so that people can find you. But it was great talking to you. I know that this interview went so fast; we could have went on a totally different tangent.
Most definitely, yeah. So hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again because yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the links from you too. I'm really interested to learn some more stuff about the people you were telling me about.
Absolutely. And just so you know, Gigless is going to continue. We're going to have like more seasons, and we're also going to do a check in when all this is over and passes to see where everybody's at. So we're going to give it some time. So hopefully we can check back in on, and everybody has their gigs again. Everything's all good.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, everyone out there stays strong, and we will get through this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Darryl. It was great to have you.
Likewise, yeah, it's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for listening to the Gigless Podcast, hosted by Remi Leibovic and produced by Dane Wagner. The song used for our intro and outro is Beach Walk by Unicorn Heads. If you enjoyed this podcast, head over to our social media pages on Instagram at Gigless Podcast and our website, giglesspodcastblog.wordpress.com. There you can find out more about the artist, contact the host and producer, and find out more about our schedule. Thank you.